So, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Iress Live webinar. This morning, we're going to be discussing and focusing on how connected and efficient the mortgage and application journey currently is, or not, as the case may be. The UK mortgage industry has shown over the past year just how quickly it can move and adapt, buffered by innovation, impatient buyers, and stamp duty deadlines. Mortgages are definitely moving fast, but not fast enough in many instances for consumers who want more digital, instant and real-time mortgage advice and faster offers. Now, we know brokers and lenders alike are working really hard to keep up, but going faster isn't just about individual performances. It's about connecting up the whole industry. The ability to submit clean data, client data to lenders and third parties without the need to rekey has been a big step forward, but the industry can go further to reduce friction and resistance and create more efficiency. So how can the UK mortgage industry team up to create and encourage a more connected experience that delivers better speed, efficiency and outcomes for everyone? And how fast can we really go? So we have around 45 minutes or so for this discussion this morning, which is being recorded and will be made available to share and watch back later. We do have facilities for questions to the panel, and I'd encourage anyone who has questions to submit these via the chat function in Zoom. And so without further ado, I'd like to make some quick introductions. Firstly, for those who don't know me, I'm Steve Carruthers, Head of Business Development at Iress, and I'm joined by a very highly esteemed panel of experts. So joining me this morning is Charlotte Nixon, who is Propositions Director, Mortgages and Protection at Quilter. We have Simon McGuinness, Head of Customer and Broker Experience at Aldermore Bank. Scott Martin, who is Head of IT at London and Country Mortgages. And our very own Jackie Durbin, who is Head of Product at Iress. And unfortunately, Paul Thornton from TSB was due to join us this morning, but he has been called away at short notice. So good morning all, and welcome, and thank you for making the time to join today's discussion. I want to get kind of stuck in straight away, really, with the kind of first few questions. So I'm going to ask Simon first, as the lender on here. What Simon? What do you think, as an industry, we kind of need to do more of, or even less of, to address some of the pain points that we're experiencing, and even what are those pain points, and how do we address them?
So I think from our perspective, we're focused on trying to address two key pain points. I think we recognise kind of the complexity that brokers face in doing business with lots of different lenders with multiple requirements. So I guess we're first and foremost, we're focused on trying to make it easier for brokers to do business with us. Now, whether that's through leveraging technologies like Lender Connect so that you can pre-populate our application forms, or how can we improve case tracking so that brokers are aware of what's happening to their case and don't need to call us, to simplifying some of our requirements. So how do we look at things like ID and V, and how can we reduce the burden on brokers and reduce, I suppose, the documentation required to support an application process. So I think, making it easier for brokers to do business with us and with lenders as a whole has got to be something that the industry focuses on and is focused on. And I think the second area, and this may be more pertinent to Aldermore as a specialist lender, is how can we improve the speed and consistency with which we're making lending decisions. And I think that's about, how can we leverage up and coming technologies, things like open banking, AVMs, automation and MI, so that we can kind of reduce the time to offer and make it much quicker for brokers to be able to deliver, I guess, decisions to customers about whether or not we will or won't lend to them. So from our perspective, I think those are the two key areas and two key pain points that we're focusing an awful lot of time and effort in trying to address, working in partnership with technology companies like Iress.
Brilliant, Simon. And I guess from a distributor point of view, Charlotte, what would you say are the kind of areas from your perspective?
Yeah, I think you've touched upon a few points there, Simon. I think you mentioned at the start, Steve, there's been so much change and so much development and so much innovation over the last 12 to 18 months, which I think has been obviously pushed by the pandemic, which is, something was, a silver lining in a way, because you could say some of this really drove some of those changes, which is what been calling for probably some time. So I don't, a positive spin there, and I think we've seen some great support from our lender partners on, kind of making the process simpler and easier. And some of the developments you guys have made as a technology partner has been fantastic. I think where we need to look at it from a distribution point is that we've got such a wide range of different firms, businesses, brokers that all have different issues, different systems, different processes. So we're trying to find something that's going to fit all of those needs. And I think that's the challenge that we do have as an industry, is when we try and be consistent and have a consistent approach, one's going to work for someone and something's not going to work for another. So that's, I think, the biggest challenge that we've got. And then I also think, as Simon's just mentioned, there's been so much change. We just need to be clear and transparent with our advisors around what is changing from a lender's perspective. We've seen so much criteria change over the last 12 to 18 months, which has been a real challenge. And as a network, we're trying to tell our advisors around these changes, but daily, hourly, there's changes, and that's always a real challenge. And how we can utilise technology to get that information and get that update to them as quickly as possible is something that I think we really do need.
How in reality, Charlotte, how do you do that? As you say, lenders that have, on a very frequent basis, you just need to look at the daily kind of news feeds, etc. Changing, rates are changing, but criteria and policies change on a frequent basis. How do you keep advisors?
We can't, to be honest, and where we can and give kind of notice of these changes, of course we'll try and communicate that out. But as you just mentioned, they're changing so frequently. It's kind of one day you've got one set of criteria rules and then it will change by the next. So our advisors, we get constant feedback just of how much that a struggle that is, and trying to manage their clients' expectations, and also try and run a business and try and juggle everything, whether it's a wealth, mortgage, protection, general insurance. It's a real challenge, and I do take my hat off to our advisors that have managed to kind of deal in this world that we're all working in now. But however we can do that with our lender partners through technology, I think would be a massive benefit, I think, to our advisors and also our clients.
Yeah. Scott, from your perspective at L&C, what's your kind of thoughts? How do you guys are transacting and processing quite a significant volume of business on a daily basis? How do you kind of keep up with it all?
Again, same principle. It's a massive challenge, but kind of echoing both what these guys have just said. It's how do you keep up with the criteria? How do you keep up with the new products coming on the market? Everyone's trying to differentiate themselves a little bit as much as possible. But if we think about it from like I said, we deal with 80 plus lenders every year. That's a lot of different processes to manage and keep kind of under control. And it's how do we keep the standardization of kind of the mainstream stuff? Like, can we do more to standardize the mainstream cases? Because we will always want, like a specialist lender like Aldermore that can assess an unusual case and accept that. And, that will require maybe a different process. But can we do a bit of standardization around kind of those mainstream cases? That would really help. Like we said, more use of kind of data services. Can we use like bureau data to kind of, and open banking capabilities to just kind of help kind of customer at the front end? We've put a lot of effort into capturing data up front from our customers and then making sure they don't have to ever enter that again. And we only collect what we need at each stage. But we make sure we collect everything we need for the lender up front from the customer. Which then means we're in a position where we can try and help lenders kind of minimize their question sets. So because we sit at the center of this and we've looked at what we need to collect for every kind of journey. Sometimes we just help the lenders understand that they're only one of 10% of lenders that ask that particular question, and help to try and go back to their underwriting teams and challenge whether that's actually appropriate. And sometimes that external feedback can really help them. So we've tried to focus on things like that. And like you said, when we're talking about large volume, using platforms like Lender Connect make a huge difference to the rate at which we can submit and sort of improve those efficiencies. But like the other guy said, it's about how do we make that process efficient? How do we try and not drive our advisors crazy with all the different processes, and make sure we don't let go of the good things we've done over the last 18 months. We have had to flex as an industry to stay afloat, and actually some of those things have been really good. We've stared at whether it's possible to not require the original documents and how we do ID verification, and actually be sure we don't let go of that if we don't have to. So
no, absolutely. There's been a lot of a lot of change that had to happen pretty quickly, and things like AVMs and moving to digital signatures, etc. Things that some lenders, particularly some of the smaller lenders, perhaps some of the regional building societies, etc. They would never have used these kind of process before. But
completely. I think I saw a quote from Satya Nadella, the head of Microsoft, and he said businesses have done 2-3 years of digital transformation in months, a couple of months, because they have to, and it just shows what's possible if you really challenge the norm. So
I also think from an advice perspective as well, looking from a lender process as a network, we have an advice process that advisors have to follow, and we've had to change and adapt quite quickly to incorporate the changes that have been made through technology, whether it's not original documents or client portals or all this sort of stuff that we've had to adapt and flex, which has been quite good for me because it's kind of pushed some of the things that we wanted to drive as a network. But it just goes to show kind of when you work together as an industry and you're kind of all kind of working in the same direction, things can change quickly and for the better.
Yeah. And do you from a customer perspective, who's at the heart of all of this, do you get a sense that customers are driving for more kind of digital experience, a more technology digital experience? Are they comfortable with that? Is that kind of becoming much more prevalent? Scott, is that?
I think from our perspective, we've put a lot of effort over the last 3 or 4 years into kind of that sort of digital front end journey to ensure we can allow a customer to start at any time of the day. Because actually, we found when we first put our kind of online application that people were submitting things on Boxing Day and Christmas Day. People were fitting in their kind of life admin at all times of the night. So actually, it wasn't that initial kickoff of the process could happen at any time, and then they always want to have a conversation because it's the biggest transaction that most people do in their lives. So they always want to have a conversation, but that data collection part and research can happen anytime, and it's about providing the tools to allow them to do it.
I think some of the changes that we've seen is our advisors' behaviour. So you've got some that have really, changed their processes and really kind of, embraced this whole technology changes, but some that haven't. And I think we've had the ones that have embraced it have seen quite a positive impact into their business, whether it's mortgage protection and other areas. Have actually seen an increase in their business because they've adapted the way that they've worked over the last 12 to 18 months, utilised things like Zoom, Teams to meet with their clients, provide, quality advice over solutions like this. And then there's some that haven't, and I think they're the ones that maybe will struggle going forward. And I think it's something, we're supporting all our advisors within our network to kind of say, well, look, let's try and embrace this. Let's see how we can kind of enhance your business by using technology, but still keeping that kind of original, face-to-face process. But I do think we are encouraging our advisors to really embrace this because it is going to be the way that people want to deal. And I think how we've all been living over the last 12 months, we'll see this more and more going forward. Clients want to interact in this way.
I think that poses a bit of a challenge for lenders as well, Steve. And we're not quite there yet, but I think we're sort of reflecting on how might we need to change our operating model. So if customers are increasingly using digital technologies, and to the point that Scott made, submitting applications outside of office hours, can we really just have our underwriters and our teams available between 9 till 5 in a future world? I'm not sure that's sustainable long term. So how can we use technology to support both brokers and customers outside of our traditional operating model? And I think we, as an industry, and certainly as Aldermore, we've got quite a bit of work to do in that space to make sure that our future operating model is aligned to customer and broker expectations in a new digital world. Yeah,
no, absolutely. Charlotte, you picked up on a point I've got for later on, but I'll ask a question anyway. I was going to ask, what advice can you give to brokers, mortgage advisors, in terms of embracing technology as part of their business models? Because I believe there are still some business writers out there using paper fact finds as an example. Is that sustainable going forward?
No, I don't think it is. And I think we will see those firms and those advisors struggle. And as we adapt and change as a network, we're going to embrace technology as we have done. And we are using things, client portals, obviously making the fact finding and the data input as simple and easy as possible. When we're checking cases and things like, we won't be able to then utilise a paper fact find if we're not using that system to check or look at cases. So we will have to kind of bring someone on a journey with us, and allow them to kind of embrace the technology through our own advice process. But we are going to have to help some of these firms on the journey, I do think.
Yeah. Good. Jackie, sorry, I'm not ignoring you.
That's all right. I was just going to follow on from that point and say, yes, some brokers might be fearful of change, I think, but actually technology has moved on so fast in the last couple of years. I think, it's really seamless how people can use technology and integrate with them. And I think sometimes it's more of a fear of trying something new, and if they actually try it, they're going to start to see those benefits straight away into their business. But I think that's why we can all sort of step in as technology, as lenders, as broker firms, to help, as Charlotte says, hold their hands and get them on the new path, really.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. And Jackie, from a kind of connectivity perspective then, so we've kind of heard some views from both a lender's perspective and a distributor's perspective. And certainly I know that you're heavily involved from a lender connect point of view here at Iress. Equally, we know that there are other solutions in the marketplace as well, trying to do a similar thing to connect up distribution to lenders and vice versa. Can you maybe just talk a little bit about how that's going and what more you think needs to happen to move the industry on?
Yeah, definitely. So I think a lot of the technology has been piecemeal up to this point in time. So lenders might have their own strategy as broker software as we do. And it's a case of trying to get together and collaborate and go, okay, we're all experiencing the same problems. We all, use the same technology effectively, but it's going to work much better if we actually sit down, plan it out and collectively come up with a solution. So I definitely think in the last year that's changed quite dramatically, and we're seeing lots more collaboration. From an Iress perspective, we've the fortunate position of being in the middle between brokers and lenders, so we're able to try and join the dots and help reduce the number of integrations that both the lenders and broker software has to do. So that's what we're still focused on at Iress, and we'll look at that with our own technology, but we are also looking to partner, and we will collaborate with the right organizations to help improve the process for all.
And I think from a lender perspective, that's been a key challenge for us over the last 18 months, really. When we're talking to technology companies about integrations, there are, as Jackie said, there's a lot of competing technologies, and from our perspective, it's kind of who do you back? And I appreciate it's a little bit chicken and egg. It's partly distribution are looking for lenders are looking for distribution, and we've been kind of caught in this little cycle for a while. But I think from our perspective, it is about it's a considerable investment in both time, money, and effort from an organisation to integrate with these technologies. So we tend to back those that have got the distribution, but also those kind of, I suppose, with the commitment and the ambition to deliver for brokers and customers ultimately. So, but I think to Jackie's point, I think the more we can kind of collaborate and simplify integrations, then the faster the adoption will be across the industry, because at the moment it's quite a complex landscape to navigate from a lender perspective.
Yeah. Simon, you've been at Aldermore, have been using the Lender Connect technology. Have you seen that drive out some improvements in terms of timescales and efficiency?
I think for the brokers that are using it, absolutely across. So we're integrated with a couple of technology software providers, and for the brokers that are using them, absolutely. I mean, why wouldn't you press the button that's pre-populates 75% of your application form rather than sit and type it out? I think the strange thing is, to the point that Jackie and Charlotte were making around kind of adoption. We still see a lot of brokers, and it's probably just an awareness piece. Not necessarily using the technology that's there and rekeying the application through the platform. And you sort of sit here as a lender a little bit puzzled as to why that might happen. But I think over time, I'm sure that we'll see adoption rates increase. But I mean, for those that are using it, the feedback has been enormously positive, and because it's just so easy and simple to use, and it just saves time. From a broker's perspective, they can get on with doing other things.
Absolutely. I mean, you touched on a point there around awareness. Is there more that as an industry we could and should be doing around increasing the awareness of these kind of opportunities to save time, etc. Charlotte, I don't know if you have a kind of view on this in terms of from a distribution perspective and usage of the kind of connectivity software. Does everybody know about it?
I think everyone hears about it and they read about it and think, oh yeah, that sounds quite good, but they don't really know actually what it means or how they can utilize that within their business. And if you look at some of the trade press, there's so much being done in the tech space, it could be quite overwhelming, and it's understanding, right, okay, well what does that actually do, and if I did that, does that work with this system? And I think it's how, I mean, you don't want to kind of stop the developments from tech across the market, because that's what we're trying to drive, but if we can try and bring it back to, right, this is what it means to the broker, this is how it makes your life a bit easier, this is how it makes you more engaging to your customers, that would be amazing. But I can't see how we could do that when there's so many new and shiny things being launched, and it's just kind of bringing it back down to earth really, and actually helping brokers understand how they can utilize it and what it means. I think that would be fantastic, and something we do need to try and do as an industry.
Absolutely. I can concur with that. Often you can't see the wood from the trees. There seems to be every other day, every other week, a new fintech coming to the market with another tool, something else to.
Yeah, and we get it as a network. They come to us and go, oh, we've got this now. And it's like, right, okay, well, how do you put that then within our advice process? And how does that link up to here? So as a network, we hear around all these new kind of exciting initiatives, which are great. But ultimately, it's got to come back down to what's going to work with your advice process. It's going to work for our advisors. And it's just kind of having that more kind of focused view, which I think is what we need. We need at Quilter anyway, but I'm sure it's the same across the market.
I think the same for us. Like Simon was saying there, it's about what technologies do you pin your precious resource on to actually give the most benefit. And again, it's about awareness, but also ensuring you've got enough capacity in your workforce to actually absorb this new way of working, because actually with all the criteria changing and they're always trying to absorb the new information daily, and then you say change the process, and it is quite hard. I mean, it's slightly easier for us because we've got sort of more control over our advisors, because we sort of directly manage them, but it's still a challenge. It really is. So it's like how do we make sure we give the right messages, the right ones get surfaced sort of in the industry, I think.
And I also think it's worth collaborating across kind of product lines. So obviously you've got advisors here that are, wealth advisors, mortgage advisors, protection advisors. If we can try and get a solution that's going to help them kind of look at different areas for their clients. So instead of it just being singular, I use this system for my wealth business and this for my mortgage and this for protection. If we can kind of bring it all together, this is like a pure wish list, so you can imagine. But if we can try and do that, so when they are looking at kind of holistic kind of advice and looking at wealth, they're right, okay, this is how we can kind of financially manage your mortgage or your kind of later life needs or your protection needs, something like that, where we can bring it all together. I think would be such a help for our advisors as well, and it would help across looking to close protection gaps and kind of incorporate other product lines and give clients a better experience. I think that would be great.
Definitely. I think I've heard the word collaboration a few times already this morning. I think as an industry, certainly over the last 18 months or so, we've seen some phenomenal efforts to collaborate and kind of keep the show on the road. And I think, more collaboration. Jackie, I don't know if you talk to a lot of lenders and on a regular basis. Are you seeing that and feeling that collaboration?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, we've been running the Lender Connect forum for the last couple of years. Started doing that face to face in London, but the last year or 18 months has all been via Zoom. But actually, I think the collaboration has increased. It's able to reach more people. We've got more people coming to that, so that's brokers and lenders. And it's we're encouraging a very sort of open, collaborative discussion. People are sharing their experiences, what they're finding is working, and being quite open, and I think that's really benefited people. So everyone on all the panelists on the call, quite early adopters of Lender Connect, and they've all shared their experience of that in the forum, which has helped other lenders and broker software make decisions about what they're doing and trying to navigate the decisions that Simon was mentioning earlier, and Scott, which ones do we invest in. They can hear about other experiences, what works well, what can be improved, then that really helps them make some decisions and then makes their innovation quicker. So
So Dave, just picking up on a point there, you used the word innovation, and it's a word that kind of gets bandied around an awful lot across many industries and our industry. You know, are we being innovative? Is there new innovation on the horizon? Are we taking advantage of all these new technologies? You know, and I would argue, you know, we've not seen huge amounts of innovation over recent years, and actually, I'd also argue that the mortgage process hasn't really changed in 20, 30 years. You know, you still follow a very sequential order of events when you are searching for a home, buying a home or improving your home. You find a mortgage, you go through a very set sequence of events, and that's never really changed. Other than, you know, we've adopted technologies across that process to make elements of the process maybe a little bit more quicker, more efficient. I mean, can we cite any examples of some recent mortgage innovation and some of the benefits? Does anyone have any examples that they could talk about?
I think there's a cross between things that you can do now, work on now to improve the process, and like you say, other sort of things that might come off, you know, but they're going to take a bit of investment, a bit of innovation. But you know, there's some blockchain technology. You know, firms like Kodu are looking at connecting the different property software along the mortgage chain, and that could be interesting. What's going to happen there? But I think from our perspective and our technology perspective, we need to do both. We need to be looking at the problems that brokers are experiencing now with the mortgage process as it is, and also investing in the technology for the future to say, okay, how are things going to be in 5 or 10 years time, and what can we be putting in place now to be ahead of that change. Yeah, absolutely. Simon, from a lender's perspective, how do you sort of create innovation alongside your business as usual, everything you've got to do on a daily basis? I'm sure you will have a change plan, you'll have a roadmap of things you want to do. How do you fit innovation into all of that?
It's a real challenge. I mean, once you sort of overlay regulatory change, BAU change, and to the point that you made, that we've only got limited capacity to be able to deliver change. So I think I look at sort of our innovation roadmap, and you could stretch out for the next 10 years. So I think it's about actually what are the biggest pain points for the brokers, and there's no point delivering innovation for innovation's sake. It's got to be focused on addressing the needs of the biggest pain points for our customers and brokers. And as without kind of reiterating the 2 points I made at the beginning, I think we're absolutely at the moment focused on making it easier for brokers to do business with us, and trying to transform the speed to offer. So I know there are technologies and companies in the market now that have, I've seen in the press recently, offers within 3 hours, and we're a long way away from that at the moment. So I think COVID hasn't helped some of that. So some of our kind of app to offer times have gone out rather than come in over the last 12 months, but we're working as hard as we can really to accelerate that app to offer piece. And things like technologies like open banking will have a massive role to play in that. But I think a little bit like with the the experience around Lender Connect, kind of it's about making sure the journey is right. So how do we make sure that open banking journey works for brokers, customers, and lenders? You can't just put open banking in and say job's done. So it's I think innovate. It's easy to say the word innovation, and it's sometimes easy to understand where you might want to innovate, but how you innovate and how you land it and how you embed it and how you deliver it is absolutely crucial to delivering the benefits. But I think there are so many opportunities across the whole end-to-end mortgage application process for not necessarily a re-engineering of the whole process, but just to improve things and make it easier for customers and brokers. And we are like, I suppose most of the lenders are on that journey, and I guess it's who will get there first will probably reap the benefits in the short term. But ultimately, I think the key challenge for us particularly as a specialist lender, it's about how you kind of leverage the benefits of technology and you innovate to make it easier for customers and brokers, but without losing kind of the human touch. Yes, it is part and parcel of why brokers come to us in the first place. So the ability to be able to look at cases on an individual basis means there's a limit to how much automation we want to put in, and it's getting that balance right. We need to put innovation in to speed up the process, but we can't lose what's at the heart and soul of our business. So that's part of the challenge as well. So.
Absolutely. No, I agree. You You touched on a point there, actually, and I'm interested in, Scott, your kind of thoughts on this. Open banking, it's a technology that's been mentioned now, so over the last sort of 3 or 4 years. I remember when it was first sort of mooted that it was going to be the kind of the big savior for creating efficiency, both from a broker and a lender's perspective. Do you think that's actually going to happen, Scott? Are you seeing that in the marketplace? Are people adopting open banking, or actually, I have a view that it actually poses more questions than answers?
Yeah, I think it's obviously, it's been talked about for a long time now, and I guess it's finding the right implementation of it that is actually easier. Yeah. Because early on we were seeing examples where, like, just get your customer to go and log in here and give consent, but then we have to retain the data and then pass it on to the lender anyway. There's no way to ship it straight to the lender, in which case you end up having two processes for, they wouldn't accept it for all types of mortgage, or we've still got 80 other lenders that are not working in that way. So it was again, it's sort of like the point we've been mentioning all the way through. Everyone wants to align around a set of technologies and processes that will be widely adopted, so your effort to get a process for one will benefit across many. So I think, and then it's obviously making sure that the journey between those two is the same for customers. They're not being either advantaged or disadvantaged by using the new technology, and therefore it's still fair. It's about how far it can reach, and I think, and how slick the implementation is. Because actually, if the customer's like, I'll just send you my payslip, if actually I've got to go through X number of authentication mechanisms. So
no, Charlotte, do you have a kind of view from your perspective? Do the customers that your advisors kind of speak with on a regular basis, do they understand open banking? Because I think one of the problems as well is do people know what the open banking actually is?
Advisors or clients, then that's the challenge. The concept sounds great. So as Scott just mentioned, absolutely you'd want to incorporate that into your own process. Why wouldn't you? But it's just making sure that everyone understands how it works. It's not adding more work for the advisor or the client, and it's making that seamless process. And that's where I think we just need to look at a solution that's going to fit that model. And I don't think we're quite there yet. And then again, it's like what we've always mentioned, it's kind of how you embed that into your own sales process and really get people to utilize it and embrace it. And that's always a challenge when anything new's launched, and it's a bit of a journey you've got to take advisors on, and it can take time because they have got to change their own behaviors, which, as we know, is always going to make things a little bit more difficult to do when you've actually got to change what you've been doing for years and years. It can take time. So it's got to be the right solution, the right process, and getting advisors to really embrace it as well. That's what we've got to try and hit, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. One of the other kind of pain points I understand, and it'd be good to get your kind of thoughts on this, is it's kind of more towards the back end of the process. So we talk a lot about connecting up the front end, so affordability calculation, decision in principle, through to application, and kind of almost the race to get to an offer as quickly as possible. And lenders have concentrated a lot in terms of trying to get offers out really quickly, but that the offer, that's not necessarily the keys to the door. The back end part of the process around the conveyancing piece, I get a sense I'm interested in your thoughts, actually. I'm just not sure we're moving at the right speed at that part of the process. Would that be fair, Simon?
I think, probably historically, I think, the focus from a lot of lenders is on app to offer. And I'll pick up one of the points actually from the Q&A. So there's somebody asked a question around PEXA. So I don't know how many people are familiar with PEXA, but this is potentially a really exciting technology that could transform the conveyancing process. And to the point that you made, Steve, it's no point, it doesn't matter if we get an offer out in 10 minutes, if it still takes months and months for it to go through the conveyancing process. So PEXA are an organisation that were established in Australia, actually, and they transformed the conveyancing process over there. So obviously it's a slightly different legal framework and banking setup, but they have been over in the UK probably for about the last 2 years, talking to lenders, talking with the Bank of England about how we can transform conveyancing. And without getting into the details of their solution, effectively it just connects up the whole conveyancing process and just strips out time and effort from that process. So you could look at, for things like simple remortgages, you could be looking at kind of a conveyancing time of 7 days rather than, you know, however long it takes currently.
Yeah.
And actually the 7 days is just an arbitrary number. You could probably do it in 10 minutes, but there is a bit around how long, customers still want a little bit of comfort to kind of go through the process and review the documents, etc., etc. But PECs are they're engaging with lenders and the Bank of England now, and I don't think that potentially that's too far away. So the back end of next year, you could start to see some really, some real innovation in that space. Which, to the point that you made, Steve, I think is probably the first time as an industry we've ever seen any real genuine transformation in that sort of space. And it's an area that's been untouched for a long time and is ripe for innovation. I think will be welcomed by everybody. So
absolutely, and I'm aware of PECs, and I'm watching really closely, because it's like a lot of these things. As you say, they're an Australian organisation that's made some huge inroads in the market over there, and if they were to get a foothold here in the UK, then I think it could potentially offer some real great opportunity. But it's like a lot of things, certainly in my experience, is whoever are the first adopters, they will tend to lead and others will follow. And like a lot of things in our industry, a lot of the big six lenders, the high street kind of banks and building societies, they're the ones that can really influence our market in many instances. And until they make, because they 80% of volume of transactions are transacted through the big six. Yeah. And when they adopt, others tend to follow. So I'll be interested to see if PECs get a foothold into one of or more of the kind of the big six, and if they do, what impact that might have on the rest of the market in terms of adoption and following.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I know they're engaging widely across the industry, and I'm sure they're having conversations with the big six, but I'm not in a position to be able to confirm whether or not anybody's on board at this stage.
Scott, what about from your perspective, L&C? I mean, are you still experiencing, particularly since the end of the stamp duty holiday, that kind of delay at the back end of the process? Is that still a frustration for guys, advisors at your end?
Yeah, and I think, like Simon was saying, there's a lot of focus on the broker end to get apt to offer. And we've worked really hard on trying to streamline that, so making sure we've collected everything that we possibly can up front to make that as streamlined as possible. But then that sort of conveyancing end of the process is kind of almost steeped in tradition, and there are a few people that are trying to change that and move it forward. And actually the ones that are able to do that have already making a real difference. There's a few that we've talked to lately that are trying to put in technologies into conveyancing, has and allow them to move forward. So it is that process. We accept that it is slow, and we do a lot of customer expectation management when we get to that point. And it's difficult, isn't it? And there is a lot to go through, and obviously, especially over the last 18 months, it was hit really hard. Lots of delays on searches and getting things through, and obviously the stamp duty pressure as well. That put a huge amount pressure onto our process for sure. So trying to get through all of that and then make sure that we can still try and deliver in a reasonable time and make sure we're not inconveniencing any customers. So anything we can do in that space, would be welcome in our area for sure.
Brilliant. I'm just kind of conscious of time. We're kind of getting towards this sort of 45-minute mark. So I have a question for each of you that I will ask. So it's a kind of standard question around, if you had a wish, then if you could wave a magic wand today, what would you wish for in terms of improvement to the home buying and mortgage application process? Charlotte, can I ask you first?
I think I've already had about 5 wishes already during this session, but I'll try and summarise. So if we can make the journey as simplest as possible for advisors and clients, but making it more transparent, I think it's kind of where you kind of fall into the black hole within the process and you don't know what's going on and you can't really manage expectations. Having clear, transparent of what's happening at what stage and making it as quickly and easy as possible is going to be the ultimate wish I think I could have, just to make our advisors' life easier.
Brilliant. And Simon, from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult one. I'd have to agree with Charlotte, really. I think it is, ultimately, I guess, irrespective of the technology, managing customer and broker expectations is absolutely key. So as long as customers and brokers understand what, where you are, what's needed, and what's next, then actually how quickly you get there is almost irrelevant. But I think from my personal perspective, I think, if I had a wish list, I would love to transform our application to offer process and, have a really seamless kind of experience that, I guess stands us out as the number one specialist lender in the market. We're not a million miles away, but we've still got a little bit more work to do in that space.
Good. Sounds good. Scott?
Yeah, very similar, obviously. But yeah, I think the ultimate goal was always the question standardization across the industry, like that was managed in the life space, obviously. But, we're talking about a huge number of very large organizations that would involve. So for me, that question minimization piece I talked about, really challenging whether we need to ask all of the things we need and how much can be supplemented with technology at the back end to do, say, the income verification, things like that, rather than having to collect it. And yeah, if we can bring that right down to be minimal, then, and it's that expectation management piece. People get, when we're buying houses, so if we're remortgaging and we're saving money, then that's fairly emotive, but buying houses is really emotive. People are looking for the next dream house, they don't want to lose it. Expectation management is key. So if they know where they stand, then everyone calms down and everyone can enjoy the process a bit more rather than and find it stressful, I think. And obviously, if the customers are stressed because they're not having their expectations managed well, then that obviously falls back onto the staff we have, both the lender, broker, and conveyancing side. So, so kind of transparency, definitely.
Good. I mean, you touch on a really good point, and one I'm keen to see progress. Hopefully, at some stage of my career, is that data standards. I think. When we mentioned Australia before, they have, I think it's L&C standards in Australia. So they have, they've managed to do it. They've got data standards and everybody works and adopts the same data. So, wouldn't it just be great if we had that in the UK, to make everyone's lives easier? But we know that it's not quite as simple as that. Lenders have got different risk appetites, etc. So it would be a challenge. And I suspect it's something that would probably need to be driven by a combination of the regulator and some of the trade bodies as well, perhaps. But we'll see. Time will tell. Jackie, what would your sort of wish be? Your magic wand wish?
Well, if I can't have the one Scott's just had around standardization, I think it would be around speed of the collaboration. Technology exists today to help speed up the process, but I just want to be having more conversations with more lenders who are in a position to say, let's do it, let's put this technology in place. So that would be my magic wand wish.
Brilliant. Well, hopefully all those wishes can come true at some point in the not too distant future. I'm just looking at some questions that we did have the question around PEXA, so that's brilliant. There has been another question, Jackie, which is just simply to say, what was the name of the blockchain technology that you mentioned?
Well, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing it right, so that might be my mark, but Coadjute, C-O-A-D,
C-O-A-D-J-U-T-E, I think it is, yeah. So hopefully that answers that question. But I don't think we've got any other questions. Any sort of closing final thoughts, Simon, from you?
No, I don't think so. I think I've kind of covered all the kind of key points I'd scribbled on my pad before we started. Sorry.
Brilliant. Scott?
Probably just to reiterate that one I made at the start around, we did have to massively innovate over the last 18 months to keep our industry moving. So anything in our businesses that really did help, let's not lose it unless we really have to. So because some of those processes really helped speed it up and forced us to innovate on the fly. So let's try and hold on to those if we can.
Absolutely. No, really good point. Really good point. Charlotte, your kind of closing thoughts?
Yeah, just don't go back to old habits. Embrace new challenges, new opportunities. As Scott just mentioned, embrace it. Don't go back to what you've always done, because it's not always going to be the right way.
Yep, brilliant. And Jackie?
Yep, no, that's absolutely spot on. But collaboration, I think, continue talking because I think that's what actually helps deliver that technology change. It's not having that technology in isolation. It's about working together to actually, make some meaningful change. So let's just continue that.
Fantastic. That's brilliant. Well, listen, I don't think we've got any more questions. It just remains for me to say thank you all very much for your time this morning. Some really, really great discussion over the last 45 minutes or so, and definitely some sort of thought-provoking points, which I hope has helped to enlighten and inform everyone joining the call. Please, for those of you on the call, please do leave your feedback. There will be an opportunity to leave feedback at the end of the call, and we continually look to learn and improve. So your feedback is hugely appreciated. As I mentioned, the call, the webinar has been recorded, and that will be made available shortly for anyone wanting to watch it again. We'll get it onto Netflix for you, or for anyone that was unable to join. But listen, everyone, thank you all for your time this morning. Really good to see you all. Really good to chat, and enjoy the rest of the sunny, warm week. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.